Terrorism in Indonesia refer to acts of terrorism that take place within Indonesia or attacks on Indonesian people or interests abroad. These acts of terrorism often target the government of Indonesia or foreigners in Indonesia, most notably Western visitors, especially those from the United States and Australia. In June 2015, Indonesia was taken off the Financial Action Task Force blacklist of non-cooperative countries or territories due to Indonesia no longer being non-cooperative in the global fight against money laundering and terrorist financing. That gives Indonesia the same status as other major economies in the G20. Traditionally, militias politically opposed to Indonesian government interests have been held responsible for terrorism attacks in Indonesia. Separatist movements operating in Indonesia, such as the Darul Islam, Fretilim, the Gerakan Asa Merdeka, and the Organisasi Papua Merdeka were often held responsible for terrorist attacks, such as bombings and shootings. In Indonesia, recent terrorism in Indonesia can in part be attributed to the Al-Qaeda-affiliated Jamaah Islamiyah, Islamist terror group, and or ISIL. Indonesia has worked with other countries to apprehend and prosecute perpetrators of major bombings linked to militant Islamism. Since 2003, a number of Western targets have been attacked. Victims have included both foreigners, mainly Western tourists, as well as Indonesian civilians. Terrorism in Indonesia intensified in 2000 with the Jakarta Stock Exchange bombing, followed by 4 more large attacks. The deadliest killed 202 people in the Bali resort town of Kuta in 2002. The attacks, and subsequent travel warnings issued by other countries, severely damaged Indonesia's tourism industry and foreign investment prospects. However, after the capture and killing of most of its key members and leaders, most notably Imam Samudra, Amrozi, Abu Dujana, Azahari Hasing, and Nurdin Top, the terrorist cells in Indonesia have grown more and more insignificant. Since 2011, terrorist attacks seem to shift from targeting foreign Western interests and residents to attacking Indonesian police officers. The Indonesian police had success in cracking down on terrorist cells, and in retaliation a new terrorist cell, identified as the Cirebon cell, began targeting police officers. On the 15th of April 2011, a suicide bomber detonated an explosive device in a mosque in a police compound in the city of Cirebon, West Java. During Friday prayers, the bomber was killed and at least 28 people were injured. The same cell was also suspected of being involved in 2 more attacks in Solo, the suicide bombing of a church on the 25th of September 2011, and a shooting targeting police on the 17th of August 2012. However, these attacks were not as well prepared and high-scaled as previous attacks organized by the Jamaah Islamiyah terrorist group, although the number of terrorist attacks seemed to have reduced in both amount and scale. Some terrorist hotspots such as Poso, Central Sulawesi, remain. The Poso region was previously marred by religious violence between Muslims and Christians in the area. On the 16th of October 2012, police discovered 2 corpses of murdered police that had been missing for 3 days in Tamanjaka village, Poso Regency, Central Sulawesi. The victims went missing during an investigatory mission to a suspected terrorist training ground in a forest, the Poso area. Similar attacks targeting the Indonesian authorities, especially police officers, have also occurred in Papua. However, these are not linked with Islamist terrorist cells, but rather with the Papuan separatist movement Organisasi Papua Merdeka. On the 8th of April 2012, a Trigana Air PKYRF airplane was shot at by unidentified gunmen during a landing approach on Mulia airstrip, Puncak Jaya, Papua. A Papua POS journalist, Ko Goya, was killed in this shooting. On the 27th of November 2012, 3 policemen stationed at the remote Piraim police post, Jaya Vijay, Papua, were killed in an attack by a group of unidentified men. Police suspected the Papua separatist movement was behind the attack. Subsequent bombings in the center of Jakarta, in which all but 1 victim were ordinary Indonesians, shocked the public and brought swift responses from the Indonesian security forces. Even the most reluctant politicians had to admit that the evidence pointed to a small group of Islamist agitators. The Jakarta bombings and legal prosecutions helped shift public opinion away from the use of extremist Islamic political violence. but also increased the influence of intelligence bodies, the police and military, whose strength had diminished since 1998. Political factors clouded Indonesian responses to the war on terror. Politicians were at pains not to be seen to be bowing to US and Australian opinion. Even the term Jamaah Islamiyah is controversial in Indonesia, as it means Islamic community congregation, and was also the subject of previous New Order manipulation. The attacks and subsequent